You take responsibility, you show up, you keep things going even when they're not really yours to carry. And maybe that's the part no one sees. Sometimes you're not burned out because you lack willpower. You're burned out because you've been carrying what no one acknowledged was even there. You don't want praise, you just don't want it to fall apart. But somehow that makes you the one people rely on, even in silence. Today, we are going to unpack what happens when your greatest strength, taking ownership, stepping up, getting it done, becomes the very thing that breaks you. Because you're not Frodo, and this mission, it might not even be yours. Let me tell you about Sophie. She was leading a small IT project at work, a new internal system. The budget was approved and the timeline realistic. Her own time fully allocated and all the right people on board. Everything was green, nothing complicated. Then one team member got reassigned to another project. Then another had to drop out for family reasons. Then the consultant from the vendor company, the one who had known the specs from day one, left the job. Sophie adjusted again and again. She asked for replacements, did the handovers, rewrote documentation, then rewrote it again. Every delay, she took it on. She pushed deadlines, caught the things others dropped. Her schedule stretched. Her energy wore thin. She even skipped a vacation just to keep the project on track. Until one day she looked up and realized the project was still going, but she was falling apart. But no one told her to carry all that. No one asked her to take the load of the people who left, and no one even noticed the cost. But she carried it anyway, because that's what the point person does, right? You step up, you keep things moving, you make sure things don't fall apart. Here's the thing, when you're the kind of person who always steps up, with time, it becomes invisible. People don't see the extra weight you're carrying. They just see that things get done. And you don't see it either. Because you're so focused on holding it all together, you stop asking, is this even mine to hold? That's how it starts. You're not trying to be the hero, but somehow you're the one holding the ring. And the longer you carry it, the heavier it gets. Can you remember the last time you said yes and felt that sinking weight right here? Maybe you picked up the slack at work or taken charge of a family situation no one asked you to. Or maybe you just keep saying yes because you're so used to it you don't even realize it. Because if you drop it, who else will pick it up? And if you don't, who will notice what's missing? Maybe it's in your group project. You write the outline, coordinate the deadlines, chase the others when they ghost. No one asked you to, but you do it anyway. Or at home, you plan the holidays, smooth over the tension, manage the logistics, not because anyone told you to, but because no one else does. What's one thing you've been carrying lately simply because no one else would? So, what do people like Sophie do? They optimize. Sophie rebuilt the timeline, tried to keep things clear, transparent, held the team together as best she could. But quietly, she stopped checking in with herself. The coffee chats she used to enjoy, cancelled. Training sessions, skipped. And the things that really mattered to her long-term growth, they were the first to go. Even her own performance review didn't make the cut. One day, she sat with the task list open and couldn't even remember what the project was really about, only what it was missing and what she hadn't done yet. She wasn't just managing the project, she was managing silence, uncertainty, and absence, all at once, just to buy time. But it wasn't enough, because the real problem wasn't a broken process. It was that she was quietly carrying a role that no one had defined. And she was the only one holding it up, alone, quietly, with no one to share the weight. Frodo had help. Sam was there, loyal, willing, but still, Frodo insisted on carrying the ring himself, even as it wore him down. Even as it changed him. That's what this kind of responsibility does. It isolates you and convinces you that no one else can or should help. And the irony? Sophie was praised for her resilience, the very thing she was using to hide how much she was breaking. Even Frodo didn't finish the mission alone. In the end, it wasn't strength that saved him. It was someone stepping in when he no longer could. This isn't about being better at boundaries. It's about realizing you were cast in the wrong role and never got the script. You can be brilliant, strategic, focused on progress and hitting your targets, and still end up burned out. Not because you lack willpower or the right skills. You probably have both, but because you don't stop to ask, not questions like, how can I be more efficient? But deeper ones, like, why do I keep doing what no one else will? What am I afraid will happen if I stop? Whose job am I actually doing right now? Why am I carrying this at all? If that resonated with you, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. What's one thing you've been carrying that was never really yours? Or a moment where you realized you were playing someone else's role? Here's the hardest part. Sophie got what she asked for. Replacements, scope change, extra time. Maybe you know the feeling. You finally get the backup you asked for. The calendar clears a bit, a new colleague steps in, but somehow the pressure doesn't lift because it's not just about the tasks, it's about the quiet belief that you're the only one who has to hold it all together. Even when help arrives, the habit of carrying everything alone doesn't leave so easily. What's needed, though, isn't more support. It's stopping to ask the bigger question: is this still something I should be carrying? Because not everything needs to be done. All needs to be done by you. And not everything that falls apart is yours to save. That's not failure. That's leadership. The kind that doesn't just ask, can I handle this, but asks, should I? You don't drop things because you don't care. Instead, you step back because you care enough to ask what matters most. You thought your strength was your ability to carry the load. Maybe your true strength is a professional oversight to put it down and reassess the scope and responsibility that's actually yours to manage. Next time something falls apart, try asking, is this actually my responsibility? If I say yes, what am I saying no to? Knowing what not to take on is part of what makes you effective, not selfish. Leadership isn't about how much you can hold, it's about knowing when to let go. Sophie didn't reach that insight overnight. What finally shifted things wasn't dramatic breakdown. It was a quiet moment. Late one evening, she was updating the project board again, and then she caught herself. Same task, same deadline, moved again. Not because anything had changed, but because she just didn't have the energy to look at it. That's when it hit her. She hadn't felt clear in weeks, hadn't looked forward to anything. She was reacting, coping, not leading, not choosing, just surviving. That's the Frodo trap. If you've ever carried something like that, I made a short guide to help you question what you've picked up and whether it's really yours. So Sophie paused, closed the screen, and instead of pushing through, she did something radical. She brought it up to her manager, to the steering group. She laid out what had happened, not with blame, but with clarity. She asked for a scope review. She redefined the core deliverables. She made space for what mattered most and let go of what didn't. You don't need a crisis to do the same. You need a pause, a moment of honesty, and a willingness to ask, if I weren't already doing this, would I start now? That was the moment Sophie stepped out of the Frodo trap. Not by finishing the mission alone, but by questioning whether it was still hers to finish. There's a cost to carrying too much for too long. And the longer it goes unseen, the heavier it becomes. You're not here to compensate for roles that weren't yours. You're only here to pursue your own mission, not to carry what others dropped, but to choose the mission that's actually yours. When you do, that's how you truly build your momentum. But next time, we'll explore a harder truth. What if you're managing it all like Hermione? Click to do what she finally did and break the pattern.